Hey everyone, I just want to cover this news story because for once we have something positive when it comes to Islam, and I'm talking about a pushback of a kind of Islamist mentality within schools. There is a school in London called the Michaela School, and a Muslim student tried to challenge a prayer ban that was imposed in school. So I'm just going to go through the details because I think it's quite important. A Muslim student at a London school has lost a High Court challenge against its ban on prayer rituals. Michaela School in Wembley, which is in London, was taken to court by the girl over the policy, which she argued was discriminatory. Now, it's not discriminatory. I mean, at the end of the day, this school is one of these kind of free schools that you can set up in the UK and pretty much set your own rules. It's a secular school that we're trying to keep kind of obvious kind of signs of faith and prayer and stuff like that out of school. And it applies to everybody. But as usual, you get a certain number of the more pious Muslims who want to try and push the issue. They want to try and push for special favors. And this is what was happening in here. And what was great about this court decision is a non-faith state secondary school previously told the High Court that allowing prayer rituals risked undermining inclusion among pupils. And yeah, and we're not just talking about the non-Muslim students here. We're talking about Muslim students who, for example, didn't want to wear hijab or didn't want to, be seen to be as pious as the other Muslims, didn't want to be involved in prayer. They were actually getting bullied in the school. So, as usual, this kind of Islamist mentality, it was Muslims who were the first victims of it, those who just wanted to respect the secular rules of the school. And it's really good that the High Court recognised that. So it says the Free Schools founder and head teacher, Catherine Singh, who just seems like an absolute legend to me, said the ruling was a victory for all schools. And yeah, I agree. In an 83-page written judgment dismissing the student's case, Mr. Justice Linden said the claimant at the very least impliedly accepted when she enrolled at school that she was subject to restrictions on her ability to manifest her religion. This kind of thing constantly happens. It's kind of like, the rules are there, but you think you can get in there and start pressuring and pushing and bullying people. And it's really fucking great that this has had pushback against it. So it says, about half the school's roughly 700 pupils are Muslim, the court previously heard. Students are expected to adhere to strict rules, including focusing on teachers extensively during lessons, remaining silent in corridors, as well as observing restrictions on uniforms, etc., etc. So, I mean, it's quite a strict kind of old school kind of institution that they're doing there. And whatever judgment you want to make on that, I mean, it seems to work for this school. And the point is, those rules were known before you enrolled. So it says in March 2023, so that's last year, up to 30 students began praying in the school's yard using blazers to kneel on. Pupils are not allowed to gather in groups of more than 4, including on the school yard. The school introduced the ban in the same month due to concern about a cultural shift towards segregation between religious groups and intimidation within the group of Muslim pupils, the court was told, which is the kind of thing that I was talking about. It says no legal requirement for schools to allow pupils a time or a place to pray. This judgment supports the rights of individual schools, head teachers, and school governors to make a decision what's best for their own pupils. So while some schools do set aside space for Muslims to do their prayers and stuff, if you're a school that doesn't want to do that, you've got no obligation to do so. And it's great that we've got a court ruling that has kind of forced back on this issue, because this is the thing. You give an inch and the Islamists will just push more and more and more on this. And as I say, it was other Muslim pupils were the victims of this as much as anybody else. So Ms. Singh, a former government social mobility czar, said in a statement on Twitter that a school should be free to do what is right for the pupils it serves. Yeah, absolutely. And this strict kind of secular discipline has obviously worked for this school, because they, as we get to later in the article, it says, they're constantly rated as outstanding by the Ofsted, which is the school inspectors in the UK. So this system is obviously working for the pupils, and why the hell should they have to change it because there's one crybaby who wants to force basically an Islamist version of reality onto it? So yeah, just scrolling down. So following the ruling, the student said in the statement that she was disappointed. As set out in the judgment, I do not agree that it would be too hard for the school to accommodate pupils who wish to pray in a lunch break. It's not the point, is it? The point is what goes along with that, because we know it's not just about praying. It's about pushing this atmosphere of intimidation and control and saying, this is no longer a school now. It's like an adjunct to the fucking mosque or something. And it's just not appropriate. The school was very well run and generally very good at managing everything. The school doesn't wish to allow people to pray, has chosen a different path than the judges found in their favour. Yeah, and thank goodness that we've actually got a sensible judge for once on a case like this. Even though I lost, I still feel that I did the right thing in seeking to challenge the ban. I tried the best and was as true to myself and my religion. Well, no, you weren't. There was no need to do it. Again, this is different versions of what you think your religion should manifest as. Now, there were plenty of Muslims in that school that didn't want that kind of thing. They obviously preferred to have that kind of thing kept out of the way. And people like you, the pious ones, the ones who basically lean towards that Islamist mentality where you want to throw your religion into everything, couldn't respect that. And you tried to bully your way through it. And this is included this court action. As far as I'm concerned, this was you just trying to test the limits. And I'm really glad that you lost. She said she planned to remain at the school and focus on the GCSE exams. Yeah, that's exactly what you should be doing there. You can pray anywhere. You can pray at home. You can pray in a mosque. You do not need to turn the school into another version of just an extension of your religion. I'm grateful for the understanding that my non-Muslim friends at school shown to the issue as to the issues that affect us. Well, it doesn't affect you. You're making it into an issue. And I imagine your non-Muslim friends are probably damn ignorant of your religion. Anyways, in the legal action against the North West London Schools governing body, the Michaela Community Schools Trust, the student alleged that the ban on prayer rituals breached her rights to freedom of religion. Yeah, it absolutely doesn't. Nobody forced you to go to that school. You knew that it was a secular school, and yet you just want to try and push those buttons anyway. You want to try and push the limits. The school argued its prayer policy was justified after it faced death and bomb threats linked to religious observance on the site. So, and this is a thing everywhere I go. I mean, it's not just court action. The very fact this issue has already stirred up death threats and bomb threats at school. Do we honestly expect that from Christian students, or from Jewish students, or Sikh, or Hindu, or anybody else, Buddhist? An argument over prayer means that you get death threats at the school. I mean, this is just par for the course. I mean, there's no way we ever should have got to this stage in this country. And then people go on, what's so different about Islam? This crap is what's different, and it happens time and time again. The pupil, who cannot be named for legal reasons, told the court the policy had fundamentally changed how she felt about being a Muslim in this country. Well, I mean, it'd be interesting, did it? I mean, hopefully you learned a lesson that you don't get special privileges, and that really should be the lesson, and that you should grow the hell up, and your parents should grow the hell up, and not be trying to bully the school into changing things to your religious vision. That's what the message should have been. Probably the message will be is, oh, well, I'll have to try and fuck with people in some other way over this later on in life. It will be the I'm a victim mentality is probably going to go in here. I doubt you've learned a good lesson, unfortunately. Lawyers for the pupil told the judge at a hearing in January that she was making a modest request to be allowed to pray for about 5 minutes at lunchtime on dates when faith rules required it, but not during lessons. Yeah, but this is how it starts, isn't it? It's always, it's just a modest request. And then it will be, well, actually, can we have a prayer room? And then it will be, actually, can we interrupt lessons and exams because we want to do Ramadan or we want to do fasting and all the rest of it. Either everybody is on the same line or they're not. And this modest request, we know it will never be the last one. Representing the student, Sarah Hannock Casey told the court that the school's policy had the practical effect of only preventing Muslims from praying because their prayer by nature has a ritualized nature rather than being internal. Well, yeah, tough luck. I mean, you can pray in your head if you want to as a Muslim. I mean, you can say, yes, you need to get down and do the whole sort of kneeling on the floor or whatever. But, if you believe in this God, you should be able to talk to him. And as I say, there are other times that you can pray. You don't need to be doing it while you're at school. And yeah, if anybody else was openly praying and trying to make a big deal of it in the playground, they would still be affected by the same thing. So it's not just Muslims. In Islam, as opposed to most other religions, prayers are required at specific times during the day. However, as the High Court ruling pointed out, Islam does allow for the qadar prayers or make-up prayer for those who have been missed. Yeah, and this is a very important takeout from this, and this needs to be pushed more. Because there is allowance even within the strict Islamic rules that means that you don't actually have to do it at those times because there is this allowance to make it up later on with these qadar prayers. But anyway, as per usual, when this happens, we get our professional victim from the Dawah community comes out. So we're going to have a quick look here at GB News. And we'll see it's al-Andalusi. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
Was discriminatory. A Muslim student's challenge at the High Court against a London school's ban on prayer rituals has been rejected. The student argued that the ban at Michaela Community School in London was discriminatory and unlawfully breached her right to religious freedom. However, the school said allowing prayers risks security threats and could undermine social cohesion among pupils. Well, joining me now in the studio is Abdullah al-Andalusi, co-founder of the Muslim Debate Initiative. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, Muslim Debate Initiative, just another Salafi, extremist, Islamist bullshit organisation. And al-Andalusi, for those who don't know him, I mean, he has been on British screens now for, God, must be 15, 20 years. He pops up everywhere because most of the mainstream media is just so fucking lazy. They just all go to the same, handful of a few people like Mehdi Hassan, like al-Andalusia. It used to be Anjem Chowdhury before he got put in prison. Every single channel would go for him for comment, and unfortunately they go to this clown, and he's never got anything reasonable to say. Let's take a look.
In the studio. So Catherine Burbleston called this a victory for all schools. Presumably you disagree?
Yes, I think it's unfortunate. I mean, why is prayer deemed to be a threat in society today?
Again, just frames the issue as completely not what it is. It's not prayer that is considered a threat to society. What's considered a threat is when the school decides to say, we are going to carry out our secular policies and not allow this kind of prayer. They get threatened. They get the bomb threats. They get the death threats. That's where the threat comes from. And that threat only ever comes from one religion, and that's yours.
There's always a lot of complaints, especially on GB News, about Christianity and Christian practices being restricted in secular Britain. And yet, when it comes to other religions, we celebrate, unfortunately, these bans and students being prevented from simply praying in their lunch breaks.
Again, it's first of all, it's not celebration against, every other religion for not being practiced. No other religion is asking for this kind of special privilege that your religion is asking for, to be front and center, to get special dispensation every fucking time in every fucking place. So yeah, it's not about that. So this victim mentality is just absolutely ridiculous. And as I say, I mean, from my perspective, I don't want any prayers in the school. I want an even playing field. Keep your prayers in your religious buildings, in your homes and appropriate places. That's fine by me. It shouldn't be in the school at all. But again, you want to do the victims. Oh, no, poor Muslims. Bullshit.
When they would be presumably playing games, they would just want to choose to pray instead, and that's going to be banned, unfortunately.
Except it wasn't about that. It wasn't about a specific religion. It was about, it set out in the charter and the rules of the school that no prayer was allowed at all. And that was made clear to all parents, all pupils, before they enrolled at this school. In fact, she said in the ruling, you don't have to come to this school, but these are my rules. I'm free to make my own rules. If you don't like them, you can go elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And she's a fucking boss for doing that as well. The fact that she stood up to it, obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if the head teacher, who's one of the only kind of public faces to this, was probably personally getting death threats because of this. And yet she stood up to anyone, just said, no, forget it. You are not bossing, you're not the boss at school. I am. And all credit to her. And actually credit to the newsreader guy, because he's just cutting through al-Andalusi's bullshit and actually saying, no, that's not what this is about at all. This is about, you've got to follow the rules like everybody else.
Well, actually, she said she used to allow people to pray in the yard voluntarily. And then she complained that it was making other Muslim students more religious, or that there was some pressure on Muslims who didn't want to be religious or what have you. And then
yeah, there was. And as I say, I mean, I'd read this from other sources where apparently it was like they were trying to force other Muslims to pray who didn't want to. They were bullying female Muslim students who weren't wearing a hijab and that kind of thing. Yes, it was this typical Islamist pressure. So it's never just about doing the prayers, as you know, because you support this kind of thing. You support these kind of intimidation tactics all the time. Page 1 of the Islamist book, you start off with something like that and you create an atmosphere of intimidation. And that's what they were fighting back against. And good that they won.
She just said, you know what, I'm going to just ban Muslim prayer altogether, because apparently...
No, well, ban prayer altogether. As I say, I mean, it was already in the rules. It's just like, yeah, we have to be explicit about this now, because who's the one group that is going to break that is the Muslims who've got this Islamist mentality. They're the ones who are constantly going to push against the system, and they need to be slapped back into place, quite frankly.
culture and social cohesion is so fragile that prayer, just simply prayer, is a threat to it.
It's not simply prayer, though. It's the intimidation and the bullying and the gradual step-by-step takeover, which happens all the time. And so, therefore, no, it's not just about prayer. And he knows this. He's such a liar when he gives these narratives.
If such a culture is so fragile that prayer is a threat, we need to re-examine that culture.
No, what is fragile is bullies and those expressions of religious culture which say we need to dominate and everyone needs to bow down for us. Yes, we cannot have that in a multicultural society. If everybody plays by the same rules and understands that they don't get special privileges, we can do this whole thing of having different faiths and having people from different backgrounds and stuff, and you can get along harmoniously. But you've got to have respect across the board. As soon as you get one party that says, no, I want to be on top, then the whole thing falls apart. And that is you, my friend.
Well, maybe we need to re-examine the culture that emerged from this, a backdrop of events including violence, intimidation and appalling racial harassment of our teachers. That's the backdrop, the consequence of this decision. Sure.
Yes, so that's wonderful, isn't it? So, I mean, didn't realise that. I hadn't read that anywhere else. So there was racial harassment as well going on of the teachers. And, I don't know the lady's background there. I don't know whether she, the head teacher, possibly she might be partly of Indian background, and maybe there was that kind of whole Hindu-Muslim kind of clash thing there. I don't know, but yeah, so racist abuse, threats, intimidation, bomb threats, etc. And he doesn't care about that.
That proves that introducing prayers, special treatment for whatever groups within a school, when it leads to this kind of intimidation, it proves the point. There should be no special dispensation for Muslim prayers in British schools. The High Court agreed.
Well, such things are actually deplorable, but they were coming from outside the school, not from in.
That's a lie. First of all, like how quickly he skips over it. Oh yeah, it's deplorable, but no, it's absolutely unbelievably unacceptable. It's absolutely the fact that this happens over and over again, these constant death threats, whenever it's an issue in relation to Islam, whether that's in schools or any other part of public life, this constant mob mentality and this threat of violence, it's gone beyond deplorable. It's outright criminal and it needs to be clamped down on. But even more importantly than that, no, it wasn't just coming from outside of the school. Intimidation was coming in. The actual students themselves were bullying other students and doing this racial harassment stuff. So you're just lying.
Inside the school. So it seems like Catherine just buckled to outside pressure and decided just to ban everything.
No, bullshit. She didn't buckle to the outside pressure. She turned around and stuck her middle finger up and said, take me to court, threaten me. It doesn't matter. This is my school. And that's why she's a boss.
Is this the kind of social cohesion we have? Like, are we going to imitate?
Yeah, this is a social cohesion that we have, where you play by the rules, you get the fuck out of it.
Imitate China, which prevents and bans all kinds of demonstration of religiosity in their schools in the sake of a monoculture, because anything else than a government-approved monoculture creates division and destroys social cohesion. We're not.
As it does. And the point is, you want to create your own monoculture, which is basically just an Islamist domination of the world. So don't pretend that that you're against that idea. You just want yours to be doing it. But the point is, you raise China. Yeah, they crack down and it's horrible what China has done. But, you need to be careful because you keep pushing people and they're going to get more hard line in that direction. There will be less of this nice liberal, let's play along and we'll just defeat you in the courts. You really want to keep pushing people across the world in liberal democracies. Keep playing your game because eventually, if the nice liberals like us don't deal with it, you'll be dealing with the hardliners. And China is an example of that.
Living in China, if she wants to create, what next? Is she going to mandate unisex toilets and calling everybody they and not he or she? Because this creates division too.
Oh, yeah. Just like every single time you got to bring up whatever trans issues and stuff like that. I mean, it's just so childish. Look, you lost, mate. Just accept it.
You're going to go down the Marxist route then, it seems.
Well, she wanted actual universality and not preferential treatment. That's what this is about. But thanks for joining us in the studio. Appreciate your time. Abdullah, al-Andalusi, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, in other words, fuck your crocodile tears. You lost, I'm glad. And yeah, I just wanted to cover this just as a short video today because it's nice to, particularly in the UK, where it just feels like it's defeat after defeat for common sense in relation to dealing with this kind of Islamist mentality. It was really nice this week to get some pushback And, you know, respect to that head teacher. You know, she's really got a spine there. She stood up to the bullies, and I'm just really pleased about this. You know, it's just a taster for the weekend. I've got several more videos that should come out over the next 48 hours. So I will see you very shortly in the next one.